Do I look like the motherfucker you should be coming to get financial advice? Well, here we are again. So I've been getting creative urges, which is good news for you guys, because I have some wheels spinning on some future projects that some people might like, some people might not like, but it's something I want to try. But we'll get into that later in the video, because most people, when they click on a fucking video, they want you to get on with it, instead of giving me a 10-minute fucking infomercial on how to do it. If you notice, in my videos, I usually save that shit for the end. In vloggy shit, I'll kind of tell you what's going on with me and stuff, but, you know, it is what it is. But I've been getting questions via email and occasionally in the comments wanting me to talk about crypto, you know, and basically give, you know, my strategies or, you know, how to do it or all of that. And I want to preface this podcast. This is going to be a long one, probably. And if you're not interested in personal finance or surviving the fucking inflation or any of the other issues, I'm sure I'm going to get triggered at some point, talk some shit. So if you're looking for that, that'll be, I can't help myself. It happens. But for the most part, I want to kind of give you a broad overview of my philosophy regarding personal finance. So there'll be some talk about minimalism. There'll be some talk about debt and how the way things are or were, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore, but the way things used to be set up were all driven by debt and consumption. And you were pushed into corporate slave labor basically to churn this economic machine. And if one of the parts of this machine falls apart, the whole fucking thing starts to go to shit regularly. Well, that machine has been fucking bludgeoned into the fucking ground right now, if you've looked around, and there's no end in sight. I initially started cleaning my financial act up many, many years ago. Like, I want to say I became interested in it probably around 8 years ago. And I started listening to Dave Ramsey. Now, I know a lot of motherfuckers hate Dave Ramsey, and I'm not a huge fan, and there's a lot I could disagree with in terms of his, you know, fucking philosophies on getting rich and all of that, or even the need to get rich or to do all of these things. But one thing that I can agree with him on is how credit is bad and how to get out of debt. I've had every argument in the book over the years of me talking shit about this. And believe me, not just here, but in my personal life, I've had debates with motherfuckers who want to get their points on their credit card and want to fucking run up debt and how great it is to have a credit rating and all of that shit. Meanwhile, I come at it from a perspective of profound experience when it comes to doing all the wrong things with debt. Early in my early 20s, I had a bankruptcy. I filed bankruptcy, Chapter 7, because I ran around and bought shit that I couldn't afford way ahead of time. You know, in fact, as soon as I got to my first duty station, I got my first credit card. I believe it was at the BX, or the PX as the Army people like to call it. It's base exchange is what that stands for, by the way. It's like the Kmart of the military. And I got my first credit card through them, and I bought my first computer on my own. I mean, I had computers growing up, but they were shitty, but I still had them, you know, and I knew a lot about computers, and I was highly interested in computers and all of that. But that being said, I wanted a computer. I wanted to be a PC gamer. I was a big gamer. I still am, kind of, but not as big as I used to be. And so, you know, I did that. And then I bought a car which I couldn't afford to pay the payments on at the time, but they gave it to me. Right, here you go. Here's a fucking car, and the reason for that is when you're in the military, there's this thing called financial responsibility. It's part of the UCMJ that if you don't pay your debts, then you can have legal ramifications within the military. So the creditors knew this. That's why you had the check cashing places, those predatory motherfuckers camped out just outside the gate with big signs saying you can get your payday loan right here. I did all of that shit. Every fucking bad habit that you could form, I formed it, and I did it. And not only did I do it, I tried to get good at it. I tried to work the system, but ultimately it led to Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And after that, credit didn't go away. No. They won't just give up on you. Then came the predatory lenders, the 25 to 30% interest rates, the unsecured fucking checks getting mailed to you, you've been pre-approved for this credit card for $200 at a 30% fucking interest rate. All of these stupid fucking things, just with kinds of fees and shit. They're like, we're going to get your money. We know you suck at finance. We're going to keep fucking trying to tempt you to go out there and buy shit you can't afford. And over the years, I've learned a lot about that system and the other side of it and what drives that. Why would they do something so dumb like loan to my fucking dumb ass, 18 years old at the time when I started that mess? And a lot of kids nowadays, they get roped in automatically into the student loan debt and all of that other shit, and they are immediately enslaved from the moment they walk into that fucking university, on top of being fucking brainwashed with critical race theory and shitty politics. So the youth today actually had it worse than I did. I joined the military almost immediately, and I had to have a waiver signed just to get in because I was age 17. It was my way of becoming independent very quickly, and I'm glad I did that, to be honest with you. I'd do it again. I'd recommend it to anybody. Barring the fact that you might get into a war and get killed. If you make it through all of this, and I chose the Air Force for a reason, by the way. And I get made fun of from it by some of my veteran friends. But that being said, I'd do it again because it got me out there. And even though I did everything wrong, if I had the knowledge and experience that I had today when I joined the military, that fucking hindsight bullshit, if I had that knowledge back then, I would be a millionaire today. No doubt in my mind. If I knew then what I know now, I'd be a millionaire. But I don't even want to be a millionaire anymore at this point. I just want to live my life. And I don't need a lot of shit or a big house or a fancy fucking car, though I do like my Prius. But it's old. It's 5 years old now. Pretty soon it's going to start rusting. Pretty soon it'll be some failures in the future. But that being said, I don't need I get made fun of for having a Prius. And I'm just like, that thing's fucking done so much for me. I've gone to the Florida Keys. I've had trips to multiple national parks just this year. And I'm planning to get out there in the future at some point if the whole country doesn't fall apart. If I can go make money. We'll talk about that in another video because it's all up in the air as far as whether or not I can hop in a truck. So anyways, circling back, I had fucked up. I know everything there is to know about fucking getting loans and getting credit and all of that shit and how detrimental and how much of your hard work. Remember, the bottom line, the amount you make per hour, you're essentially converting your time into a dollar amount. And it's variable based on your skill set and who you know. I'm sorry, it's just the reality of it. So that being said, you got to think of money, and I started to learn this early on, that money is really just a measure of your life energy, how much labor or productivity you have to produce to acquire things and consume. And I started to learn that I was over-consuming. Like, the whole reason I had to work 70 hours a week in trucking was because I wanted all this shit that I didn't really fucking need to survive. And it was weird, the hypocrisy of it, because I was in a truck with all my basic needs covered. You could legit live in this truck, and I did for many years, live in this box, have your entertainment covered, have your money covered, have your food covered, have kind of your transportation covered. You have to rent a car every now and then and stuff like that. So you don't really need to own a car. I mean, it's nice, and eventually, because of how much you get paid, you could afford one. But that being said, you could get by without one. I mean, you're home like 3 or 4 days out of the month. You could easily just rent a car for that. And it probably would cost you less than owning one, whether you're through maintenance and all the other costs. And for a while, I even did that when I was trucking. I would rent cars when I was home. And you don't need to maintain an apartment. You could either maintain a storage unit or, a relative's house or a friend's house or, just a place to park your shit. I mean, you don't need a lot of shit is the other aspect of that. And that's probably where my minimalist roots really started. And then later on, watching my father pass away from cancer, kind of instilled to me what is important in life. Because for many years he had a ritual, a routine of things he would do for entertainment. Believe it or not, he was a gamer, not a hardcore gamer. He's one of those rage quit motherfuckers that would throw the controller and swear and then get mad at you for doing something just because, that kind of gamer. But as he withered away from cancer, which I saw in gruesome detail right up until the very bitter end, I watched that desire to do those things melt away. And I could see and hear the regret of the amount of time he wasted through his life. It was palpable. I think he even said something to that effect to my mother. And he started giving things away. He gave away the gaming system. He gave away, various things. And he just gave up. And ultimately, that was that. He tried to cling to life, but I think in the end, he really did just throw in the towel, and it was very sad and very eye-opening, and that's where I really started digging deeper into minimalism and the concepts behind it. And while I'm a shitty minimalist, I'm not someone should look to that's looking to become a minimalist. I'm not a guy in a room with a laptop on the floor minimalist or a backpacker minimalist. But my living space and requirements and lifestyle is far lower than a lot of people. And I see a lot of people struggling to achieve that they're enslaving themselves essentially for that lifestyle, or they've accumulated some responsibilities through family and whatnot that kind of compound that. And that's the number one argument against minimalism I get is, I'd love to do it, but I got a family. Well, you could educate kids to consume less. You could take a little bit of control and maybe pass on these values to your family. At the end of the day, the hardest part is a spousal situation, in which case you could, which might be too late for a lot of people, but if you're single, you could probably choose a spouse that is at least aligned with you on that. If you're into that shit, by the way, I'm single again, in case you didn't figure that out, look at me. So yeah, you can make excuses, or you can do what you can. And that's really all we can do. You don't need to be at the peak of anything. You don't need to prove anything to anyone else. At the end of the day, your life is your fucking life. And you should not be listening to this under the pretense of doing exactly what I'm doing. Now, maybe if you pick something up that you can apply to your situation to improve it in whether it be in a modest way or a large way. I'd say the number one thing that whether you got kids or not that you can do is get out of debt. It's not hard to do. You might think it takes a long time. It requires commitment and discipline to do it. Step one and alone is a hard one for some people. It's stop getting more debt. Stop buying shit. Even if it's an emergency, stop using that card because you're essentially paying anywhere from 15 to 25% more. I'm assuming if you're to the point where you're using a credit card to meet daily needs that you're probably financially irresponsible and you need to fucking check yourself. That being said, you are paying more for the same thing that if you laid down the cash. The solution isn't more debt in the emergency situation. The solution is to go out and get extra income anywhere you can. Sell shit. Go out and work fucking gig economy. Walk around during the winter with a fucking shovel if you have to, but do whatever it takes to bring in a little extra money to help chip away at what you owe, or at the very least, keep yourself afloat. And it's a concept that people that cling to debt really don't get with. Not to mention the addiction aspect. You get a huge dopamine hit when you bring home a fresh kill from the mall. It's really a thing. I mean, there's people who are addicted to shiny new things. They get the shiny new thing, and I was one of them. And I'm talking to you from fucking 100% personal experience on this one. You get the shiny new thing at home, you play with it and everything. It's all good. You got the shiny new thing. You put the shiny new thing over there, and you're like, oh, well, I'm fucking bored. Well, let's go to the mall. Let's find some shiny new things. And I think we're starting to see a movement in people realizing just what they were giving up with the Great Resignation. See, this is where I go off on tangents. With the Great Resignation and all of that, I think we got to a point in 2020 where people were forced to consume less, essentially. You couldn't go out. You couldn't go to a restaurant. You couldn't go to the fucking bar. No, you could go to Walmart and buy some fucking Chinese plastic shit, but you already had a house full of that and you're stuck in the house, so you end up just fucking saying, I don't really need anything. And then they start sending you funny money, which leads to the inflation, which is kind of the point of this video, is how to beat inflation. We'll get to it. Don't worry. I'm sorry. I talk a lot. So if you don't like that, you got the wrong YouTuber. We're at the point now where we got to push. We got this glimpse of just how much of our personal resources we have wasted. And not only that, they've taken away things that we haven't gotten back entirely. Unless you got the jab, of course. But even then, there's things that, for me personally, that disincentivize me. Why am I going to go bust my ass for this fucking government that is wasting money, aka my time and energy from the taxes they pull out, and they pull out a pretty good amount, I'd say. Well, at the same time, devaluing the dollar, which is an invisible tax, and it's an invisible tax on the poor, essentially. And the middle class, if there's any of those left. But it's a tax nonetheless. They know what they're doing. They're not dumb when it comes to when the Fed does their interest rate hikes and gives money to fucking Wall Street, which they've been doing left and right. They know what they're doing. A lot of people are like, free money. I need free money, free money. Well, if money wasn't free, you're going to pay for it now if you're working. But they are cutting off the spigot a bit. So you're going to start to get in that uncomfortable zone, where you're not getting the fucking government checks, unless you file for food stamps or any of the other social programs, which maybe you've learned to get by on those. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's an unsustainable system because you're losing productivity, which we're seeing. There's less workers. Now, a lot of people think that's propaganda. It's not. I kind of been doing some independent investigating on my part, and the help wanted signs are fucking everywhere, especially in retail. People don't want the shit jobs anymore. I can't fucking blame them, to be honest with you, because I don't want the shit jobs anymore. And trucking is a shit job, by the way. Some people like it. After 15 years, I'm in the shit job category. I don't want to do it. I'm glad that I can do it. It's nice to be able to go out there and pile up money, but it kind of sickens me to know that not only am I supporting all the corporations who are fucking with me and all the government agencies that are fucking with me, that know that my labor and productivity is helping them, makes me ill. Now, I know my labor and productivity also helps general public, but at the same time, it's hard to reconcile that, at least with me. And I'm not alone in that. You know, I mean, you could just look. Then they're going to tell you that all of these things aren't because of the mandates, all these fucking flight shortages and labor shortages and all of that. They're going to spin this into other reasons motherfuckers don't want to work, for sure. I'm already starting to see that narrative being pushed. But at the end of the day, if you're less free, if they take away your freedoms, are you going to be as incentivized to go out and bust your ass, chasing an American dream, which is all but impossible to get? And even if you do get it, Joe Biden's waiting there, like, oh, let's get that unrealized capital gains tax in place, because we can't have anybody fucking succeed anymore that isn't blessed by us. You know, sorry, a little triggered. Sometimes it happens. Let me drink my coffee real quick. So, that was a nice little tangent, getting back to the point. So, this machine that we were all thrown into, and are still thrown into for the most part, relies on you buying shit. But not just any shit. Now, they're killing off small businesses. Look around. It is really hard to be an entrepreneur nowadays, and it is strongly discouraged by our universities with the way they formulate their curriculum. You're not supposed to be free to be successful in this country. So right now, what we're seeing is a concerted effort to make it as difficult as possible for small businesses, mom and pop operations, and those kind of employers. No. They want you to go to a set of corporations for everything. They want complete control of your consumption and your money. They're already going to shave trillions with a fucking T off of all of your labor and force you to purchase medical procedures and medical prescriptions, essentially. No longer do you have the choice, or do you get to go to the doctor and say, Doc, what should I do? No, you got to go in and the doctor says, well, the government says you got to do this, so you got to do this. Makes me feel really good about shit, right? You know, but that at the end of the day, that's all about money. There's so many theories about it. Oh, they're chipping you. They're doing this to you. They're doing that to you. The cabal is fucking taking over the fucking place. No, they're taking your resources, your wealth, and your productivity, and they're going to take as much of that as they can from you and leave you little crumbs. And that's where the inflation is really targeting. They're essentially, and they'll throw you a bone. They'll talk you up. They'll be like, oh, well, you can make $15 an hour right now. That's the equivalent of $6 an hour 4 or 5 years ago. You know, and that's where we're headed. So, you know, knowing that I've embraced minimalism, I've lowered consumption, I've gotten rid of all my debt. I am 100% debt free. I had to slash and burn to do it, you know, with the bankruptcy and all of that. But at the end of the day, the end result is the same. I do not owe any credit card debt. I don't have an automobile loan. I own my car. Everything you see in this little room in the basement, I own. I bought it with cash up front. Here you go. Give me my shit and fuck off. That's where I'm at financially. I do not, and it's to the point now where I've evolved it into, I only buy things that I enjoy and can make money and hold their value fairly well. As in, say one day I give up on music. I can then sell all of this shit and basically make a profit, because I do make a little bit of income with all of this. Everything that's in here, I bought with how can I make better videos? How can I make my own music? How can I create content? How can I do this? So everything in here is slowly paying for itself. And then at the end of its usefulness to me, say the bigger, better deal comes out, I then sell that shit with the intent of upgrading. And then and it's only if that upgrade will improve my ability to work, will make it more efficient, will make the quality improve, will bring in more income by providing better quality. And I'm not saying I'm good at it or I'm hitting the mark, but I'm trying. And that's my philosophy behind the things I purchase nowadays. So much so that when I walk through a store, 90% of the shit I'm walking around is like, I have no interest in any of this. I went to the mall yesterday to see how we're doing locally, economically. And I'd say it's pretty much a wash. There was a lot of vacancy. There was very little, 'cause it was Monday, so I understand that. But there used to be a time where no matter what day of the week, if you went in after 5 o'clock at night to a mall, it was bustling. Well, that is over. Not to say people aren't consuming. Clearly they want shit. That hasn't changed. People haven't learned their lesson on that. But how we live and what we consume is changing. And now you get everything delivered right to your door. You don't have to fucking leave the house to shop. You could stay home, watch fucking product reviews on YouTube, then go on Amazon and buy your shit and have it delivered right to your house, all while being naked, sitting in the bathroom taking shit. These are all things that people have learned, and it has changed the way we interact with life in, I believe, a bad way. They want you to consume and only leave the house to go to work, is what it seems like, for the most part, But you can do some of that other shit as long as you get certain things in your arm. That's okay. I'm sure they won't fucking give you the next fucking requirement. I'm sure there's no more fucking regulations coming down the pike. All right, sorry. It's the way my fucking brain goes. All right, continuing. So I want to talk about the next step once you get debt free. That's the number one important step to me, is to get rid of that debt and lower consumption. You sometimes can't control your income, but you can control what you spend and what you spend it on and where you spend it, for the most part, barring the necessities of life: shelter, clothing, food, transportation, and whatnot. And based on how many mouths you have to feed, that can be compounded to an almost unsustainable level given our current economic situation. So, I completely understand that some of people don't have the luxury of only thinking about their own situation. I apparently, for the most part, do. I do have some other people that I concern myself with, and hence why I'm in New York. But at the same time, I'm not financially responsible for those people. So, and now I think it's at the point where you should really evaluate your resources. There's other ways of making a more minimalist life and consuming less, and making the things you do consume have more impact, more positive impact on your life, and also increasing the efficiency of your income. It got to the point after I was debt free that I was like on a work as needed basis, as in if I wasn't going out to consume, hence not going to a restaurant, not going out to buy the next shiny thing, basically I just didn't do any of that. And the things I do consume entertainment wise are generally give me a lot of hours for my dollar, so I don't have to work fucking 70 hours to entertain myself. Walking around in the woods has a pretty good, dollar cost ratio when it comes to how much money I spend for how much entertainment or fun or fulfillment I get. And I always look at that through that lens. If I want to go to a fucking restaurant today and have a fucking ribeye, it's probably going to cost me $50. How long and what do I have to do to earn $50? And then I would do that. And I wouldn't go to get the fucking ribeye until that was accomplished. And then, if I wanted another ribeye, I'd have to evaluate the value of going through whatever I just went through to pay for the last ribeye again. So if I want to go a ribeye steak dinner a couple times in a row, I knew that I had to do exactly what I did the last time over again, or find a more efficient way of doing it. But at the end of the day, that's how my philosophy of consumption goes. It's like, if I want to do these things, I calculate the amount of time, energy, and effort is required to pay for it. Then I go do that thing. Then I get the money to go and do the thing that I was desired to do. And sometimes that formula alone dissuades me from consuming some things. There's some things like, for example, going out for a night of drinking, for example. As you know, I have a drink limit. It is 3 drinks at this point. I did raise it. Maybe I'm falling off the wagon eventually. Who knows? But hey, I'm not getting out of control on 3 drinks, said the addict. Anyways, a joint, doing these things, I am less inclined to go bust my ass to do that. So, and it also regulates me falling off the wagon. The fact that I don't want to work and bust my ass, particularly at the bottom end of fucking lifestyle, which is where I'm at now. I don't want to bust my ass to go for an unfulfilling, in my opinion, night of consuming a lot of fucking alcohol. At the end of the day, you don't get enough value for the effort necessary to raise that money. It's not to say I never do it. It's to say that a lot of times I'm dissuaded from doing it because, my social life does revolve around a bar. A lot of my friends I met through a bar, and generally that's where they go. We all hang out there, we all do our thing, and then we go off and live whatever our lives are. But every once in a while we come back, we bullshit, and we fucking go. I'd be more inclined to do that more often. However, what stops me from doing that is knowing what I have to do to pay for that. And that's how I look at it. How much time do I got to give, and what do I get in return for that time and energy and effort? And for the most part, lately especially, I'm just like, well, I just can't, I don't want to do all of that to go there. Sometime, and it helps that I work there because I get there still, and sometimes I'll have a few drinks on the money I make there, but it's kind of a blend for me of getting my social interaction in at the same time, working, but to me it's not as much work because I'm essentially in this place I'd be hanging out in. I got to do shit while I'm there. I got to put up with some shit while I'm there. But at the same time, I'm still kind of enjoying the social aspect of it, which is really why I go there. And to sing. I like to sing. I get to sing when I'm working. So, demand-driven consumption, is essentially what I don't know if there's a term for it, but only working enough to do the things I need to do and to pay the bills that I do need to pay. And getting it to that level. So it's basically separating needs from wants and then really focusing on what wants you get, what you get in return for the money you spend and how much time, energy, and effort it took to earn that money. And that's different for everybody, mind you. If you're a fucking baller, this is nothing to you. You could go to fucking eat the steak dinner every fucking night and you have not poured as much time and energy into that as somebody that had to go work as a Walmart greeter or the dock worker or the truck driver that had to bust his ass to do that. It's that balance ultimately that I live by it. And it's kind of, sometimes it means not doing shit too. Or coming down here and doing this, or finding more productive relaxation, in terms of it doesn't require as many resources to do said fun thing. And that's how I look at the lens I look at things from. So that in and of itself is the first hedge against inflation. Lowering the amount of labor and lowering the amount of consumption means you avoid that kind of basically the resources that are being extracted from you by lowering the value of the dollars that you earn when you work or you produce or if you're your own business. Same thing. It's a variable scale, and some people can afford to do all kinds of shit. But a lot of people were going into debt to do those same things, and that is the mistake. You see your neighbor who maybe has to work 10 minutes to make $20, and here you are working at the supermarket, and you want to do the same exact thing that neighbor does. So what do? You go and get credit. Why? Because you can afford the payments. No, that's not how you do it. Because what you essentially doing is rolling up your fucking sleeves and taking your pants off and running through the bushes waiting for ticks to latch onto you. And they're going to give you Lyme disease on your balls. That's one step in a series of things that I'm doing to hedge against inflation. Now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes that if you're not patient, you never make it to this part of the video. But getting into crypto, why I chose crypto. First of all, Bitcoin. Basically, I chose Bitcoin later on because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And we're going to get into how I got into crypto, but now I'm trying to give you an overview on why I believe crypto is a hedge against inflation for now. And I've stayed ahead of the price increases for the most part by essentially taking money that I earn, little as it may be, and trading to make a profit to essentially offset the loss that I would be accruing right now had I just left the cash in the bank. I have an emergency fund. I've always had some kind of emergency fund. Sometimes it gets uncomfortably low for me and the little bells and whistles start going off. Right now, it's fairly stable. I could live for 3 to 6 months off of what I have saved and invested, being the key words there. Now, why is that? Because my investment is steadily chugging away, growing, without me doing very much to maintain it. And I'll get into the hows and whys in a little bit. But why I think Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. One of the things I do in my strategy for investment is, what are the rich people doing? Where do they go to avoid paying taxes? And they do. Where do they go to keep their wealth? How do they keep their wealth and keep people like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi from eating all their fucking ice cream? Basically, they don't let their money sit. All right? They aren't walking around. They have all of the material shit that they could ever want. And in fact, they abuse debt because they can afford to hold on to their wealth. So what they do is they keep their wealth tied up in assets. And this is what the dumbass Democrats, who are 10 fucking ways behind the fucking curve in chasing the rich's wealth, they think if they tax unrealized capital gains that they'll somehow get their money. Well, that just means that all the rich people will go out and buy tangible things like companies and whatnot that essentially shelter their cash, their wealth, that hold value. It's easy to look at a stock market or a Bitcoin portfolio and say, oh, well, they made this much money right now, even though they haven't cashed it in yet. It's a lot harder to go to a fucking huge real estate fucking thing and say, oh, well, the value is going up. When you can, there's all kinds of costs involved. They could run up a lot of reverse mortgage or equity debt to try and basically keep the property without showing that they're making gains. And that's another way that rich people tend to hide their wealth, is they'll go out and use that credit card to no end so that they can show that. And by credit card, I mean corporate credit card, to show that everything they come in is going back out and that they're not making as much profit, or they make a manageable profit, that their taxation is minimized in that realm. And if done well enough, they could essentially pay zero. You can do that too. Every one of you watching this video can do the same thing that those motherfuckers are doing to avoid paying huge amounts of taxes. And what's more, you can even avoid that bill by just not working as much. I mean, it's really that fucking simple. If you put out less productivity and you consume less, then by proxy, you are going to pay less in taxes. And if you do it good enough, you'll be low enough on the poverty scale that you'll be off of Biden and Pelosi's radar, because they figure they got you. Your entire existence has to rely on the government to survive at that point. Not true. There are ways to navigate that because I don't have food stamps. I currently receive 0 government subsidies to survive. So, it's not to say I would never do it or I haven't done it in the past. I've been on food stamps in the past, briefly, but I hated it. I hated it to the point that I will avoid it if I can. But that being said, I have other ways to make these things happen. I'm fairly resourceful, all right? I'm fairly good at coming up with little income streams and little ways of making things happen, and bartering and that kind of stuff. And which bartering is also something, basically, hey, I'll come paint your fence if you give me dinner, that kind of stuff. That's barter. They can't tax that. They can't come for that. That's a personal agreement for assets that aren't really tangible. What is fucking Biden going to take the food out of your stomach or to paint off the motherfucker's wall? But at the end of the day, one of the reasons I chose crypto and Bitcoin is we're going global, people. Whether you like it or not, you're being dragged kicking and screaming. It's already in place. We have all of these countries doing the exact same thing. And if nothing screams global fucking coordination, I don't know what to tell you. Never in history have you seen all of the countries doing the exact same shit. And don't give me that it's all the coof shit. No. Even on the coof, you'd have, in times past, you'd have basically countries right next to each other saying, fuck you, we ain't doing it, fuck you. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a, global cooperation that on a scale that we've never seen, where you see China doing some of the same things as Australia. And so forth. It should be alarming to you. It's alarming to me. That being said, one of the things that we've been fortunate of is Bitcoin. Now, a lot of you don't know what the first fucking thing about Bitcoin, and I understand that. And I'm not here to fucking teach you all of that. I'm here to point you in a direction, to let you know, if you're inclined to learn and to invest and to try and do this, that there are several steps to do your own homework on. All right? If you do what I do and you lose your ass, it's your fault, not mine. All right? That being said, I chose Bitcoin. This is my rationale. I could be wrong. It could go to 0 tomorrow. I don't fucking know. But I'm not very scared of it because I see what's going on. You got to look at the motivations of the elites and the rich, the hedge funds, Wall Street, those motherfuckers. And you kind of look at what they're doing. They'll say one thing, but actions speak louder than words. And one of the things that's really screaming to me is there's a $1.3 trillion market value in USD of Bitcoin. That's not retail, all right? That's not me and you. We're talking large corporations, large hedge funds and banking, and large players. People that have a lot of money have put it into Bitcoin. And those same people, because Bitcoin is global and thus harder to regulate, they can use a lot of the old tactics that used to be used on Wall Street to manipulate the market. It's going to happen. But my philosophy on that is, okay, I know they're going to do this. So what if I just ride the wave that they create? What if I just tag along, hang on to their little fucking coattails and maybe make a little money on the way? And that's my trading strategy. I wait for the big moves. And I see what they're trying to do. And then I go and I do some other homework on what the mainstream propaganda narrative is, by watching business news and basically kind of doing the opposite of what they're saying. Whenever they're saying Bitcoin's a pile of shit, it's going to the bottom, we're all going to it's all the China's doing this and it's all, we're all going to fuck up. That to me is screaming, buy, motherfucker, buy. And then when they're saying, oh, it's great, it's fucking, it's awesome, we did all of this, and you got to keep an eye on them because sometimes they'll be screaming that and they'll be buying. And it's real easy to do. You'll listen to the news says, oh, the world is falling, the sky is falling, and then you go and you look at the fucking market, at the trading, and you see something like this over here, a huge candle going up. That's not fucking grandma buying shit. That is hedge funds or a billionaire or a trillionaire moving the market. They did it over here too. And basically what they did is drive value down for the most part. And then they generate this enthusiasm. They go up and then you get fear of missing out. People are like, oh, shit, oh my God, it's going on. And they buy right now. This is not financial advice, but right now is the worst possible fucking time to invest in Bitcoin. It is, I'm telling you, there will be a reckoning. It is going to crash. It's going to crash hard, probably alongside the stock market and the rest of the economy. And it's coming. You can probably bank it. You could set a clock to it almost. But the other factor that hedges against inflation, aside from corporate market manipulation, is the fact that the value of the dollar is also going down, while Bitcoin is pretty much doing what Bitcoin does. And that's gradually increase in value because there is a diminishing supply. It is basically a deflation, or basically it's an asset that can only grow in value because there is a finite amount of it. And the difficulty in mining, it varies based on how many people are mining. So the more people are mining, the harder it is to mine. The less people that are mining, the easier it is to mine. We're kind of hovering on that edge between very difficult to mine. If you set up your computer to mine it at home, you're going to get jack shit. Versus, if you have a room full of fucking miners, which are these basically bare bones computers with a GPU or 4 in them, worth of processing power with a big ass cooling fan on it. And basically you get warehouses full of those and they gobble up all kinds of energy, hence the whole energy argument against Bitcoin. But that being said, the only reason there's an energy crunch on Bitcoin is the amount of motherfuckers trying to get in on the mining. If there were less people, it would consume a lot less energy than some of the other economic endeavors that we do. One could argue. Like, how much energy does it come to have this fucking paperless currency called the dollar that we're moving to, you know? So there's that. So that being said, you gotta watch what the elites are doing, and if you're going to invest in crypto. And there are a lot of coins. You know, you've got Ethereum, it's endless. I'm a simple creature. I took the time to learn about Bitcoin, how it works, why it works, what the use case is for it, which is essentially, a lot of people say it holds no value. No, it has value. It's me being able to send funds anywhere in the world instantaneously through a reliable, secure network that you can't just steal from. And the government really hates that because they like stealing your money. So the fact that you're able to transact independent of governments and banks is the value of Bitcoin, and always will be. And the reason your local government can't really do shit about it is because of that exact value. Anybody can send money anywhere. A lot of people are like, oh, well, the criminals are doing it. The criminals are fucking it, so they're doing illegal shit. What do you think the U.S. dollar's been used for? When you see those big drug busts on TV, what kind of currency are they pulling out of the fucking suitcases that are alongside all the fucking blow that's out there? Just saying. The U.S. dollar has been used as the currency of fucking crime for fucking ever since it became the most valued currency on the planet that everybody trade in. And we're devaluing it, so that ain't gonna last. So, you know, if inflation becomes hyperinflation or stagflation, I don't think you understand just how bad it's going to get. So having a way to turn your $1 into $100 might come in handy, and that's possible using Bitcoin, you know, or any other currency that you want to learn about. Ethereum shows a lot of promise. It's widely adopted. I got pissed off at Doge with the manipulation that Elon Musk did there, and he is manipulating. You know, he didn't become a fucking billionaire or whatever the fuck he is now. I think, is he in the $1 trillion area? I think Tesla just announced that they were going, but I don't think that's all his money. But that being said, you know, he knows how to manipulate a market, and he's a fucking internet troll, so there's that. So I kind of steered clear of Doge for that reason. You know, I looked into Mana, which is a token that is in one of the, because gaming is becoming a thing on the blockchain, and that's where NFTs are really shining, you know, as far as having a demand for them. And for those of you who don't know what an NFT is, there is this famous meme going around right now about a certain person who I follow on YouTube, by the way, who bought an NFT for $1 million. Which an NFT is basically, you could make a stick figure painting and put it on the fucking blockchain and establish that only one person has ownership of that stick figure. They can put it in on their page or publish it in some shit, or put it in a game or virtual reality or some shit. But it's theirs. And it has other applications too. Like if you create a song, you can establish somebody owning that song. Not that they can't fucking capture the sound and put it out on the fucking, you know, web somewhere for all to fucking share and steal. You know, but at the end of the day, you can prove ownership of a certain piece of work, of creative work for the most part, and that's what NFTs really are. It's like collecting Pokemon cards or some shit. You know, they have some value. Some asshole will pay you for that. Generally the rich asshole, not the guy working at Walmart checking his Bitcoin portfolio to see if he got $20. So learning Bitcoin was a slow process for me, you know, and I started out essentially I started out with the most predatory fucking thing in the world. Your ability to on-ramp, as it's called, essentially. Basically, being able to take your US dollar or whatever country you're in's currency and turn it into crypto usually involves Bitcoin. It's usually the first step. No matter what coin you're interested in, 90% of the time, when you're taking your fiat currency and converting, fiat being the dollar or the pound or whatever fucking euro, you know, whatever your currency is, and converting it into Bitcoin, essentially. And then you use that Bitcoin to go and buy the shit that you want. And that's pretty much it. You know, if I trade in any other coin, LBC comes to mind, which I've gotten out of other than whatever I earn on my videos on Odysee. You know, essentially, you're going to need an on-ramp. Now, it varies by where you live, not only by country, which here in the United States, it is tightly controlled in most states. New York is fucking damn near impossible. There's entire exchanges I can't trade on simply because I'm a New York State resident, which has forced me into the predatory exchange of Coinbase. Coinbase is an exchange. It's very bare bones. It doesn't give you a lot of tools to fuck with as far as trading goes, but you can trade using Bitcoin. But you're going to pay way more in fees. From the time you buy your Bitcoin, they shave $6 for every $100 right off the top. Then they charge you when you take it out and put it in another wallet on another exchange. They're raking your investment right off the bat. And you have to take that into account. There's no way around it. And they know this, which is why they're allowed to play in New York. And one of the things that not to completely call them assholes, but in order for them to operate in New York, they have to pay for the privilege, which is why Bittrex, for example, no longer can trade in New York. They won't let you trade if you are a New York State resident. Why? Because New York said, hey, you're going to have to pay such and such amount to operate in the state of New York. And Bittrex said, no, we're not. Fuck you. And once they said fuck you, they stopped your ability to trade. And I was in the middle of a trade when they did this because I was kind of stupid at the time and didn't really pay attention enough to the news to know that this was going to come down the pipe. And I was invested in a shitty coin that because I didn't know what I was doing. I was still fucking around. I didn't have anything in there that I, couldn't lose at the time. I was trucking still. It was like $100 invested, and I was just trying to see if I could turn that $100 into $500 by trading. And I was almost there. I was almost starting to make profits. And then that happened, and I was like, well, fuck. I can't trust these motherfuckers anymore. But that being said, if you know you're going to pay the fees, and if this is your only option, there are other options. For example, my next step, usually, I'll buy it through Coinbase, and then I'll immediately put it either in my hardware wallet, which is, think of it as like the wallet in your pocket, essentially, only digital in a sense. But a hardware wallet means it's not connected to the internet. Basically, it's either uses your phone as the hardware, or you have a actual USB device that you plug in that authenticates your transactions with a key, literally, that you could write down if you needed to on a piece of paper. And you can use what they call, I forget the term for it. It's a wallet that's written in paper. It's basically a bunch of keywords in a sequence that you can put in that, gives you access to your ability to trade on the blockchain, which is essentially a ledger of transactions that's verified by computers all over the world. Hence, that's what the miners are essentially doing for you, is verifying your transactions and keeping a ledger in a decentralized way in which nobody can manipulate. As in theory, I mean, if somebody controlled 51%, I think it is, of all mining capability, they could essentially, I think, take control and manipulate the ledger in some way. I don't know. I don't know what's called. I don't understand all that because I'm not a fucking expert. I'm just some dickhead in a basement. You know, asshole too. Yeah, but it is what it is. But you know, that's essentially the idea of Bitcoin. It's a decentralized ledger that has value because of the ability to send funds everywhere in the world. It's not invisible. Okay? Now, there's things you can do to make it a pain in the ass to track your transactions. And there's wallets that are completely anonymous. They can't directly link you. That's the hardware wallet, for example. They can't necessarily figure out that it's mine unless they trace the on-ramp. Now, the on-ramps require you to provide a photo of your ID or your passport, proof of a residence, you know, essentially, and a photo separate from your ID to verify against your ID. And they probably do some other checks in that process too. It's called Know Your Customer, or KYC. And in order in the United States for an exchange to operate, they need that bare minimum to operate. And then it's up to states on whether or not. Now, there's some states that are very pro-crypto. South Dakota, for example, is very pro-crypto. They don't care. You can buy and trade crypto all day in South Dakota. New York, it's a little bit sketchy. You know, you can buy and sell crypto in New York, but only if you're paying for it. And that's what Coinbase is doing. When they charge you that big ass fee, it's not all going in the Coinbase's fucking wallet. A chunk of that's going to every government or local, state, whatever. They're paying for the privilege to be able to operate in those locations. And Coinbase has done it everywhere. You can go pretty much anywhere in the world, I think, and use Coinbase because they're essentially bribing governments all over the place for the privilege of being able to operate. And then they're passing that cost onto you for using that as your on-ramp. So it's really a nice fucking scheme. You know, and if you notice, MasterCard and Visa's getting on, and we're going to get into that here shortly too, is getting in on that. So that's what Bitcoin essentially is and what it brings to the table. So how can you use it to fucking trade? Well, there's the part that's most important. You got to do your fucking homework. And I did. I started off experimenting. You know, it's essentially like being in a casino at that point because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're probably going to lose your ass. You know, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to learn a new skill, and it's kind of interesting how you learn to trade. And the number one way that you do that, watch fucking tutorials, all right? It's not hard. Watch tutorials. So a couple of the people I watch, this is just a few. There's tons of it. You can just search. It's not hard to find how to put the word beginner in your search when you're first starting out. And don't just follow one, all right? You need to fucking have a large amount of time dedicated to learning this. And it's not any different than personal finance in that respect. You know, a lot of these things that I've put into place, I've read audiobooks. By reading audiobooks, I mean, I was a truck driver, so I had audiobooks playing almost all the time alongside podcasts. And I listened to a lot of personal finance authors over the years, including Dave Ramsey and a few others, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whoever the fuck that was. And, you know, basically rich people telling me how they did it and the stupid shit to avoid and basically how to keep your wealth, stuff like that. Doing homework is part of the deal. There's no like following someone else's formula because they have different responsibilities, they have different debts, they have different philosophies from yours. And you can't just follow a cookie cutter thing because in the end that's probably going to burn you. No, you got to learn these concepts and interpretations for yourself, which involves not being lazy and doing your fucking homework. Instead of watching Netflix, watching something like this will provide way more fucking value for your life. You know, way more value. So, and I'm going to give you just two of the YouTubers that I now follow and my thoughts on how to interpret what they have to offer. Now, this is a really, he's a little quirky, but this is Coin Bureau, and I'll put a link in the description to this video here. But here's a nice 20-minute beginner guide. It's a good launch point on things to worry about, things to concern yourself with when you first buy crypto. But at the end of the day, just take your time and only invest what you could lose to start until you learn the ropes, until you learn how to look at a chart and kind of know what's going on. You're not going to look at a chart because there's so many different, there's so many different fucking ways to interpret the data that comes from a trading view. And you can also, another thing you can do is learn about the stock market and trading as well, because a lot of the concepts of trading stocks apply to the crypto market. But you don't have to be a day trader to take advantage. You could be a swing trader. That's like buy low, sell high, wait for the dips, wait till it goes. And that's kind of where I'm at. I wait until the inevitable crash where one of the hedge funds decide, you see the big candle wick going down and you're like, okay, here we go. And that's what I look is, it's not all just fucking fundamentals and chart reading to be successful. You got to kind of pay attention to what the people that are making the moves and why they're making them. So, and that comes into paying attention to financial news, what the big wigs are doing and saying, watching mainstream media business news, but through the lens of they're probably fucking with you. They're probably telling you some stuff to make you scared, so you'll go and you'll sell. Or they'll try and tell you some stuff that makes you optimistic, so you'll go and you'll buy. And why would they do that? And you kind of have to have that in the back of your mind. And then you got some of the independent content creators who aren't without their biases, like they're advertising shit. You could get discounts for signing up. There's affiliate links. They're trying to get you to do that. Some are really predatory in this manner too. And because they get huge kickbacks for you joining through their link and signing up for an exchange through their link. But I never did that. I always just went and figured out for myself what I thought was the safest exchange. And for me right now, that's, honestly, CoinEx. It's based in the UK. Does it a guarantee? No. CoinEx is a point of vulnerability, and never, ever, ever, ever. And I've learned this firsthand when New York did their shit to fucking Bittrex, which was a big exchange at the time. It's still a big exchange. It's just there were a big hole in the fucking trading, power here in the United States. But it's fairly reliable for everyone else that isn't fucking trying to extort money out of the fucking exchanges. That being said, don't keep your fucking money on an exchange. You might have heard a while back where those fucking people were doing ransomware attacks and getting their shit in fucking Bitcoin. Well, they got some of that Bitcoin back, and it wasn't through the hardware wallets or any of that shit. No, the dumbasses kept their shit on an exchange. So the feds came in and they went to that exchange and they got them fucking wallets. Because guess what? If you have a wallet on an exchange, it ain't your fucking wallet. It's the exchange's fucking wallet. And they have the keys necessary. I don't even think they give you the key, the recovery key or any of that. No, because it's their wallet, not your wallet. Same way the money that's in the bank. It ain't your money till it's in your fucking pocket. And if it's in the bank, the government can take it. The bank can take it. Credit card companies can take it. Anybody that you owe money to can come in and fucking through the court system, come in and fucking take your bank account, put a levy on it, and your money's gone. Because it ain't your money. Why? It's not under your fucking mattress. It's the same thing with crypto. You think of crypto just like cash. And that's the other thing. If you do have a hardware wallet, you could lose it that way, and it's been done a lot. That's the other thing that drives up the value of Bitcoin is dumbasses lose their hardware wallet or lose their key so they can't recover their wallet, or they're dumb and they keep them in the same spot and some other asshole finds their key right next to their fucking wallet. No, don't be stupid. Protect your shit, But at the end of the day, if you're having your crypto, thousands of dollars, some people store millions of dollars into these hardware wallets. and lose the fucking wallet or lose the fucking recovery key. That's even the most important. It's, you know, you can lose the hardware wallet. Like my little fucking Ledger hardware wallet could fucking fall down a fucking sewer, or somebody could steal it, even though they won't be able to get my shit out because they don't have the key. Because there's also an encrypting key just to access the wallet. So, you know, basically, that's a point of vulnerability. Same way as if you take a bunch of money out of the bank and put it under your mattress, some asshole could come take it. And you say, oh, well, my shit's insured in the fucking bank. Well, if you're debt-free, maybe. Or if you don't have a tyrannical government that wants to know if you have more than $600 in there, maybe. But it's not how that works, all right? Your money ain't yours until it's in your possession or invested in your tangible asset that no one else has fucking access to. You know, which is the key in this totalitarian fucking government that we seem to be onboarding right now. And when you think about the inflation, your money isn't your money until it's in something that's tangible. It's in your possession. Your wealth isn't yours if you're keeping it at someone else's fucking castle. All right. Same thing with Bitcoin. If you're keeping your fucking money on an exchange, in an exchange wallet, then it ain't your fucking money. Only keep on an exchange that which you are actively trading. When you are done trading, if you're just going to hold your fucking crypto, get a hardware wallet. It's not financial advice. It's anti-being stupid advice. All right. Keep your crypto under the mattress, in the safe, in the, you know, not even a safe deposit box, because they can even get that if they want. No. Keep your hardware wallet somewhere where you won't lose it, and keep your key, your private key, to unlock that wallet. All of this you can learn watching fucking YouTube videos, by the way. And I do believe you can even on this channel, Coin Barrel, find videos to the subject of hardware wallets. Once you learn to do that, don't put all your shit on your wallet right away. Learn to transact with your wallet, because if you fuck up what address you send shit to, you essentially lose whatever you sent. So small amounts when you first get your wallet until you're up to speed on moving your crypto from, say, CoinEx or Coinbase onto your hardware wallet. You need to learn that, because if you fuck that up, you lose your money. That's the other aspect of crypto. It's essentially you left the cash somewhere and someone else either got it or it just fucking you dropped it in the fire and you can't find it anymore. If you put the wrong address in when you send crypto, it's gone. There ain't gonna be there's nobody you can call and be like, look, I sent my no, it's gone. That's the other way. People fuck up and lose their crypto. I know there's a lot of ways. This isn't a sure thing. But if you take the time to do your homework and learn what the fuck you're doing, you're probably not going to make these mistakes. And these are common mistakes that people make in crypto. But not the rich motherfuckers. They're not making those mistakes. They're waiting for you to do it. So that's the other way, that thing that drives up the value of Bitcoin, is people are losing it. Not to thieves, they're losing it to stupidity. Kind of like we're losing everything else to stupidity.
My regular viewers know this video isn't really for you. As a crypto educator, it's also my duty to help you.
And I go to this guy mainly for news. He's like a financial news guy. He'll tell you all the things that crypto companies are doing, so on and so forth. But I also watch people that try and give you interpretations and read charts and do trades. I've been following the Moon for a long time because he focuses a lot on crypto, although this is a Ethereum video right now. But he goes through the charts essentially and talks about patterns and what he thinks they mean and stuff like that. And that doesn't mean he's right. But if you watch enough of these, you know, people that are interpreting, and there's videos out here that, you know, tell you how to interpret different patterns and different ways to read these charts. I'm very fucking simple. I'm like a fucking gorilla with a Bic lighter or some shit. I don't know. But at the same time, my strategy seems to be working in terms I'm able to consistently make profit. And he'll show you, like right here, you see this little pattern forming, and this is a descending triangle, I believe. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. And basically, learning this, I know, looking at this, that this is when it's inside this triangle, which is easy to form because it comes down here and bounces off of what's called resistance. That's basically when you see it bounce multiple times off of this line, which you draw in, which you can do in most normal fucking exchanges, and you're waiting for it to deviate from this pattern. And what he's showing here, and why he's opening this new Ethereum trade, I don't even need to watch the video to know, looking at this chart that he has here and these lines he has drawn, he has two resistance lines drawn, and he's showing how they're breaking those resistance lines. So the point at which you trade generally, and this is my chimpanzee understanding of this, I'm not a fucking expert. Don't just take this and go start trading and thinking that you're going to fucking make lots of money. Because it's not a guarantee. None of this is a guarantee. This is, this is probably going to do this, so maybe I should do this. But what happened here, based on what I've learned, is it broke this resistance line of this descending triangle to the upside. This could have just as easily broke to the downside of this triangle, which would change the kind of trade you're going to do. You do a short trade, which you'll learn about if you do your fucking homework. That's essentially you pull out of, basically you would sell when it dropped down here. And then you would buy back in wherever you thought the bottom was going to be. And that's subject to a whole lot of variables, and you'll never get it right. All right. You should just target a percentage that you think is a reasonable chance of, and it usually involves looking for another resistance line that you think it might bounce off of, and then trying to time it so that you buy back in when it hits down. That's called short selling, essentially. That's an loose term because a lot of people, they do it through credit and debt and all of that shit and derivatives and shit that's way beyond my pay grade. But to me, when it goes down here and dips to the bottom, you fucking sell, and then you buy back in when it gets down here, and that's if you're day trading, which requires you paying attention to these fucking charts all the time. When you first get up in the morning, anytime you have idle time, you'll have the charts up on your phone. You're like, oh shit, it's time to go trade. It's a whole thing. So day trading is probably the most work-intensive way of making money in this market. And he's a day trader, and he's very successful at it from what I can tell, unless he's full of shit, which I don't rule out either. At the same time, he is definitely trying to sell you on bonuses and fucking getting you on different fucking exchanges, some of which I have no fucking idea or on their reputation. So take all of that with a grain of salt, but I find his interpretations of the charts, over time you'll see a repetitiveness to his interpretations, and you just gotta kind of listen for that, and you'll pick up a thing or two here and there the more of these you watch. Some of them are going to be completely over your head, and you're just going to be like, oh, well, that didn't fucking help me. But every once in a while you'll say, hey, he said that last week, and this happened. And you'll start to notice the trends and the things to look for and the results, and you can go back in history. That's the great thing about this. You can go and find these patterns and see what happened. Now, it's not a guarantee that it'll happen again, but it does increase that likelihood, and it helps you make a decision if you combine it with this information, which is what are companies, what are the movers and shakers doing, what are the hedge funds doing, the big investors, where those big candles are that I showed you, and that's my trading strategy essentially, is what are the big candles, what are they indicating to me, and then looking at the fundamentals of these patterns that are well established through the stock market trading. There's so many different patterns to look for and what they mean. Then you got RSI and all these other things down here, and they're good indicators of what's likely to happen. But at the same time, you could have Elon Musk come and tweet and fuck that whole thing up for you. So you just kind of balance those two things when you make your trades or when you first invest for long term. Now, ultimately, theoretically, you could buy right now Bitcoin, right? I don't think you should do. I think you should wait for the next crash to buy in, and it'll happen. Trust me. Might take a month, might take a couple 6 months. I don't think it would take a year, but it could. You never know. But there's going to be another crash. Right now, I think we're slightly ahead of the value of it. But that's just from gleaning from all these different sources, that's what I think is going on. So I think we're going to have a crash, and it's probably going to coincide with a stock market crash, which it's brewing, I feel like, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Like I said, don't listen to my dumb ass. Do your own homework and come up with your own. Take responsibility for your own fucking money. Don't trade based on someone else's shit and then wonder why you're broke at the end of the day. But we see a resistance line break here, and sure enough, it's going to crack to the upside. And generally, depending on your risk aversity, when you saw it break here, if you started your trade here, as in you bought more of it here because you knew it was going to go up. This is the riskier trade in my book than buying the crashes, by the way. Because there's no guarantee that if it breaks this resistance line that it's going to climb. It did, though. And, if you look back on this chart he's showing here, you see these huge candles here. And I would look at something like that and be like, okay, we're going up for a little while. Because what they're doing is they're roping people in, it's going up. Oh, shit, I better not miss out. And they get in. And then it starts to go sideways a little bit. And this is where they're trying to be a little slick and sell off, because some of this going up is enthusiastic people putting their money in. There's people like, oh, it's going up. I better get in on this. Yay. And then there's going to be dumbasses that don't realize when it's going sideways like this, you'll see these big candles popping up to the downside. And that's not all retail. I'm telling you, it's not retail. There's not enough retail in that huge 1.3 trillion to get a candle that size. You're talking big fish. So the big fish are slowly unloading here. But they don't want to do it too fast because they still got a lot of their money tied up. So you'll see this sideways action quite regularly. And then fucking all of a sudden, when you least expect it. And these patterns have played out repeatedly throughout this. It's a well-known tactic, and it works. These big candle motherfuckers are making money by doing this. As you can see, it's going to go up. So, yes, to me, what he's saying in here, that he's starting a trade, if you were day trading, I would say yes, that you could probably safely buy some here and make probably 5 to 10%. If you time your exit strategy properly, which is hard to do. So to me, it's always a riskier trade when you're seeing it break this pattern to buy in at this point with the hopes of selling at a peak in the future, which you have no way of predicting where that peak is. And we see some big candles buying back in, which is, I believe, an indicator that there's big movers and shakers going on here. But you got to keep in mind these huge candles you saw back here. I think, and this is my opinion, no one else's, that we're seeing these smaller dumps and this sideways motion. And you might even have more than one big player doing the opposite, which could lead to a little bit of tug of war here, which is how these patterns form. And it's been that way forever. But yeah, it's going to go up, but I don't think it's going to go up super high. I think we're probably could see there's 2 points of resistance here. We could get up to this 60, looks like 67,000, where this top of this candle is. There's a possibility it could go that high. Or it could end up a pattern much like this, only on a larger scale. So it might not reach. So it's just timing, basically. From the point you bought in, generally, my rule of thumb is maybe 5 to 7% if I was day trading on selling out. And there's times I do that and I fucking kick myself because it keeps going up. Like, if I'd have done that strategy way over here, I'd be kicking myself. And I did, by the way. There's several, when these big wicks started happening and we started to peak over 50,000, this is around the point where I took some profits. I essentially sold off some of my Bitcoin at that point. So there's another hedge to Bitcoin that you can do, and it's something I do, but only if it's feasible for you. Right now, it's very hard to get computer hardware. I'm a gamer, so I generally have a bunch of GPUs laying around waiting for me to game, when they could be making you money. Now, there is a risk to this as well, financially. First of all, the cost of your electricity is a factor in this. So you have to consider the cost of your energy, which, whether or not the amount of energy this uses, as in what it does to your electric bill, versus the money you take in from it. Now, my computers are always running anyway. I'm generally a gamer, so I'm using energy in that way and not really making anything back from it. So basically what this does, and do your homework on this. So I use nicehash.com. Not a sponsor, none of that, and use at your own risk, because I can tell you this has already cost me a little bit. Because I had, at one time, basically what it does, you remember I told you about those mining, and basically you can do it with any GPU or processor, and profitability is based on the power efficiency of that chipset or graphics card, essentially. And you can turn that processing power, because all crypto operates on these mining. Well, not all of it. Some of it, there's some crypto that is, I forget the term. There's a different term for it. But essentially, it's crypto that is, I think, stake-based or some shit, versus the mining base, I guess, the processing power base. Bitcoin, though, however, operates on miners to maintain its blockchain. And there's fees involved and all of that to give to the miners, and it's a whole fucking thing. You could dig deep into that rabbit hole. I'm not an expert on mining. I just came across this in my watching of tons of videos, and I started to look into mining and what it takes to be a crypto miner, because I had some hardware sitting around and it's not making me money. And I wanted it to start paying for itself, essentially. I'm currently not in a profitable situation because a laptop that I got, it's still kind of profit, because it was an old laptop that was literally doing nothing. It was laying around. And so I signed up for NiceHash. Now, what NiceHash does is it takes your computing power and applies it to whatever coin somebody needs to mine. So basically, you're selling your mining capability on whatever fucking coin, whatever, to someone else. And they're paying you for that with Bitcoin. So essentially, your computer is earning Bitcoin for you. And you're not setting the world on fire with this. We're talking maybe $150 to $120 a month in Bitcoin profit. Now that's if Bitcoin doesn't do anything. However, Bitcoin isn't just sitting there playing with itself. It's going to grow. So you're earning this mining fee for the use of your GPU or CPU or both. I tend to just do it with GPUs, not my CPUs, because the cooling of my systems, especially for laptops, is questionable. And the reason why I'm a little in the hole on this is it did burn out a fan. Didn't burn the hardware. Like, I can turn the laptop on, but at the minute it's doing anything intensive and requires cooling, the fan just starts making this loud, obscene noise, probably not working. And if I probably ran it long enough, it would eventually either catch fire or fall apart or whatever. But it was an older laptop. It burned out the fan on it. I still have the laptop. I'm not using it for anything because I really not much to do if I can't get the cooling. Eventually, I might try opening it and figuring out how to replace the fan myself because I don't want to pay for it. Other than buying the fan, obviously. I don't want to pay for the labor, though. But that being said, that's the risk associated with mining, is you could burn out your hardware. And it's just a question of, can you, at the very least, get the full price you paid for your computer before you burn it the fuck out? And so far, I'd say I'm halfway through the price I paid for my laptop and the price I paid for my desktop computer. And those are the only two machines I'm using to mine right now. And basically, it's whenever I'm not using them that I'm mining. When I use them, I turn the mining off. I either play a game. I do leave the miner going when I'm watching videos because the videos tend to rely on the CPU more than the GPU. And since I'm only using the GPU for mining, I can indeed watch YouTube or stream whatever, and or watch. Basically, I can watch videos and look at internet articles while it's mining. So there's that. And because I do that, I'm constantly accumulating Bitcoin. Very slow pace, but that compounds over time. So basically, if I do nothing, if I just sit on my Bitcoin, I slowly accumulate Bitcoin. And as I'm slowly accumulating Bitcoin, it's accumulating more value over time. So say I earn $50 mining in Bitcoin value for the week. If I do nothing and I leave that Bitcoin in there, long term, it's probably going to be more than $50 a week. It's probably could potentially, if it, like, say Bitcoin went up to 100 grand, which is not out of the realm of possibility, mind you, especially given our economic system. But the reverse can be true too. If Bitcoin crashes, then I'm sitting there waiting for it to go up again. It's essentially my theory, by the way. If I see a big crash, I don't cry, I don't sell, I don't do it. In fact, I often buy during those times. But for the most part, I don't panic because I know I don't have access to those funds all the time. I know that sometimes the market's down and I have to leave it in there until it goes back up. Unless I lose complete faith in Bitcoin, which would be the only time you would sell at the bottom, is when if you think it's going to crash and never come back, and then cut your losses. Kind of like I did with LBC. But that being said, I don't think that's going to happen to Bitcoin. I've seen no indicators from the financial news and the, like I said, the total market cap value being so high, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. There's no way it's going to go from 1.3 trillion down to zero overnight. There'll be a lot of intermediary steps in that because there's just so many countries and companies and people tied up in the system that it's not going to crash overnight. There are some places that would like to see that happen, like China, I think, is trying to make it happen, but it ain't happening. I saw a little bit of a dip when China got out of it, but for the most part, greed is good. These fucking motherfuckers are moving their operations to other countries. And believe me, miners, by the way, are very incentivized for cheap energy. If you could get a solar array and mine with it, you're making probably almost 100% profit, as in the mining situation would not only pay for all your solar shit or your wind shit or whatever shit. And think of this on the grand scale of these huge warehouses filled with mining fucking computers. Which, by the way, the whole grid could take out, by the way. This is all if the world doesn't end shit, you know. There's a lot of people who be like, well, all of this shit's going to go to zero if you lose all fucking power and grid and everything and the world goes... Well, it could happen anyway. So prepare accordingly. But you also got to prepare for if it doesn't happen. Because otherwise, you're left with a bunker full of shit and no life. But that being said, that's the theory behind mining, and I utilize NiceHash to trade my hash power to people who want to use it to mine shitcoins all day or whatever the fuck they're using it. I don't know. As long as I get Bitcoin out of the deal, I don't care. It's not directly mining Bitcoin, though, because Bitcoin mining is very difficult because you got big, huge warehouses filled with it, and the more miners they are, the algorithm changes, or however the fucking voodoo math goes, to make it more difficult for you to make a profit off of the mining. So it becomes not profitable at all because you're going to use probably way more power to get a lot less Bitcoin. And for me, it's been fairly profitable, so to speak. So I'm slowly accumulating Bitcoin all the time, whether I'm actively trading or not. Another way to grow. Another hedge against inflation. But keep in mind, it's not without its risks. You know, there was a period of time when wallets don't keep your wallet piled up on this shit too. Because remember, if it isn't on your computer and you don't have the private key, it's not your wallet. And basically what this mining software does is it puts all of your Bitcoin in a wallet, and you need to look at that as just a waiting point, and you need to pull it out of there as soon as you can, and it's 0.0001 Bitcoin, or I think it is. I don't know, don't quote me on that. But there's a minimum withdrawal, essentially, and it's generally about, at current market value, it's about $60 to $70 worth of Bitcoin, and then you can move it to your hardware wallet, wherever that is. And so I'm constantly doing that on top of swing trading, essentially, where I don't have to stare at the charts every day. I generally look at it. And the other great thing about Bitcoin is it doesn't trade, like these swings don't happen in a 2 or 4 hour time span. Generally, if you look at it twice a day, you can probably make a good trading decision without losing your ass. So it's very slow and in that respect. But I can't buy shit with my Bitcoin. What is the good of Bitcoin if I can't go into Walmart and buy my fucking face masks and my jab? Well, I got an answer for that. This is Bitpay, bitpay.com. And what this is essentially is a debit card. Like any other debit card you could secure or sign up for. You know, you can go through PayPal. There's all kinds of debit cards you can sign up for, which are essentially just bank accounts. And the way these things make money is through fees. So I did a lot of homework before I jumped on board with this because I don't know. It looked sketchy up front. And then as I dug, I started to realize that it is indeed a viable platform. And the first thing I asked is, how does Bitpay, that's the company, make money? And they make money through small fees that they put on your transactions, but they don't really fuck you on the trade when it comes to your Bitcoin becoming USD that you can walk into Walmart and spend. So basically what this is, and MasterCard has recently tried to get in on this, hence the MasterCard down here, but they're doing it independent of these companies because they're seeing that they're missing the gravy train. And I don't begrudge these companies for charging fees for this because they are performing a service, and that's the off-ramp of crypto. So how do you spend your fucking money? So Bitpay, as I was saying, basically what Bitpay is a hardware wallet, as in there you have the private key, which means if you lose your phone or drop it in the toilet and it blows up, You can use the private key written somewhere and stored safely away from anybody. Don't give anybody your shit. But your phone becomes the hardware wallet. And then what you can do is it has you put a pin in so you can access your hardware wallet. But you can only do this from that phone, because that's where your crypto, when you transfer it, is stored, is on your hardware wallet on your phone. But what that allows you to do is you can use your fingerprint or your PIN number to access your hardware wallet and take the Bitcoin that you put into that hardware wallet, which you send from your other hardware wallet. Like, say, and the way I do this is I have a hardware wallet that I store the bulk of my crypto in, that I'm not actively trading with. And basically when you get to those peak points, that we see, but basically when I get to these points where I want to sell, which for me, honestly, like around here, I probably would sell just shy of 66,000. I would sell my Bitcoin. So what happens is, on the run up to this point, I know I'm going to be selling. So what I do is I take crypto in the amount of profit based on what I think I want to sell. I don't want to sell all of it. I mean, you can, and theoretically buy back in, but then what if it doesn't crash? What if it keeps going up? And I tend to take, a small percentage profit here and there over time. It does accumulate because I don't spend a lot of money. So I take a profit. In order to do that, I start preloading my shit into my hardware wallet on my phone through the Bitpay app. You get an app and it has the hardware wallet shit installed. But keep in mind, you lose your phone, you lose that wallet if you don't have your key. You need your key. So, but what this Bitpay thing does, essentially, within minutes, you can take the Bitcoin that's in your wallet and load it onto this debit card, which you send in your information. It's the same as signing up for any other debit card. They mail it to you, and you have a chipped debit card that you can use to spend anywhere. And you can literally, in real time, I think it's never taken me more than 5 minutes to take Bitcoin from my hardware wallet on my phone and transfer it to the MasterCard in USD. And what it does essentially is you authorize them to trade at the current market value, whatever that may be. They do take a very small fee for that, as in they're not really making as much money off of the trade as they're making off of when you spend it on your card. As in, they're getting the same fees that every other debit card does. They charge you fees if you go to an ATM with it, just like every other debit card. And that's how Bitpay makes money. They don't gouge you on the actual trade like some exchanges actually do. Now, you're still paying a fee on that trade, and it is probably slightly more than you would get if you were doing it with USD Tether, which is a coin that's based on the Ethereum network, which ties to the value of the US dollar. And prior to this Bitpay thing, I would trade on CoinEx back and forth in between USDT, which is USD Tether, essentially. It's called Tether. So I would tether, so to speak, to the US dollar to do my trades. And then every once in a while, when I felt I'd made a sufficient profit, I transfer it back to Coinbase, pay the exorbitant fucking fees for that, and then take it out of Coinbase and put it in my bank account, which I pay the exorbitant fucking fees for that. Well, this, for me, was the cheaper option than going back to Coinbase. So Coinbase is an on-ramp only for me now, because I have this. This is my off-ramp. This is how I get my money out of crypto, aka profits. However, what you should be aware of, you have know your customer on this. As in, they will probably file a tax document for any money you make in profit. I mean, it might not be profit. Maybe you lost your ass and you're taking the rest out. So you got to be on the spot with your tax documentation for this kind of shit. Thankfully, I don't make a lot of money, so I don't have a high tax on this. But if you do this on a large scale where you have a shit ton of money and you make a shit ton of money, the minute you pull it into this card, as in not when it's on your hardware wallet on your phone, because it's still a hardware wallet that no one has access to. Once you take your funds out of Bitcoin and put them on this card, there is a tax liability, especially if that's profit. And they can figure out by backtracing all of your addresses of trades to the original source, they can figure out that if you made a profit or not, if they have the tools already in place to audit you in that manner. So, currently, under the current laws, and Biden's been working on this, by the way, once you take your money out of your hardware wallet and transfer it to this card via the phone, takes 5 minutes on the app, then you are taxable on the money that you pull out. So that's how the government makes money off your shit. If you practice all of the principles I've been talking about in this podcast, then you're only pulling out money that you need. So therefore, you're only paying taxes on money that you need to spend. So keep that in mind when you're taking those profits. Are you going to, because once you're back out here in the dollar, guess what? You're subject to the same inflationary pressure everyone else is. And the longer that money sits there in that wallet, you are losing money. And I've got a decent amount on my debit card right now because I'm not spending it as fast as I pull it out. And I'm honestly kind of holding it there, waiting for a crash to then take the money that I pulled out and start the cycle over again and buy back in. I currently have a decent amount of Bitcoin, pretty much emergency fundish levels of Bitcoin, sitting there, and a decent amount of emergency fund in cash that has outpaced the inflation in terms of the money I put in versus what I'm pulling out. So basically, I'm funneling my money through Bitcoin over time, based on what the market's doing, to make enough profit to offset the 30% increase in inflation that is pretty much what everyone, so they're going to tell you 8%, 5%, 7%. But when I walk into a fucking store, I'd say it's closer to 30% based on the prices I'm seeing and the things that we buy every fucking day. Not to mention the fuel prices, which continue to slowly climb because they don't want to stick it in right at once. They want to slowly, they threw you in the pot of boiling water. Now they're just turning up the heat very slowly so that you don't know you're getting fucked. Is that? I don't know. And that is pretty much my very loose trading strategy on how I use crypto. And there's two important caveats here to that. Keep in mind, if you get spend happy with your crypto like this by going through Bitpay, and you go to the restaurant and you have your $50 ribeye. This is another thing, a downside to this. Say the market was up, you just popped and you took, $50 out so that you could go celebrate that you made 10%. So you take $50 out and you go and you're enjoying your ribeye, and literally while you're enjoying your ribeye, the market goes up another fucking 30%. Well, guess what? That ribeye cost a hell of a lot more than $50 at that point. So, one of the downsides of Bitcoin being your store of value is that when you do spend it, you're going to have that, oh, fuck, I missed out every once in a while, and realize that you might have spent a lot more for your fucking good service, plastic shiny shit, or your dinner, or you went to the grocery store, or whatever you spent it on, probably at the pump. Most likely. Essentially, you paid more at that point. So that's the downside. You got to be careful of that. And right now, my strategy isn't just pulling it out to go and buy shit. A good deal of what I pull out, I do put back in. Because we're in such a bullish situation right now with the market, I have essentially, I'm in a holding pattern, waiting for that next crash. And maybe I might miss the bus onto the moon. That it could continue on this upward trajectory to hit 100,000, which is why I don't pull everything out, by the way. Because if it does continue on, I'm still got the mining going, and I still have the money that I do, the Bitcoin that I already have, which is slowly growing over time with the mining. So this is basically win-win for me. Yes, could I have made a fuck ton more if I hadn't taken those profits in the 50K range when we're sitting here in mid 60K range approaching? Yes. But at the same time, I'm doing what's kind of a diversification strategy. It's kind of I could be greedy and do the other thing, but the other thing carries a greater risk. Whereas if I only take smaller profits, and essentially my goal in taking profits was to remove my investment amount completely from what I have zero initial investment in Bitcoin right now. All the money that is currently in my Bitcoin wallet is pure profit. No matter when I take it out. If I take it out, if it dumps back to 25,000 and I fucking take all my money out, that's still 100% profit. I did not lose a dime. If I take it out after it hits 100,000, that's profit. It's all profit because my initial investment has already been recouped. And I haven't even spent it all yet. The money that I fucking initially put in. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about vast amounts of wealth here. I'm talking about essentially emergency fund levels of money, as in 3 to 6 months of expenses. Longer if I reduce my consumption even more. And believe me, I'm in reduced consumption mode, given the situation with trucking being up in the air for me and whatnot. And I'm kind of in a gathering all my nuts phase and not eating all my nuts, which I highly suggest you do the same, but you do you. I'm not a financial or life fucking advisor. I'm just telling you my thoughts on this stuff. So remember, the very most important thing you should have got out of this video is I am not a fucking expert, and I'm probably wrong about half of this. Who knows? Feel free down in the fucking comments. What's your strategy for getting through inflation? And these are all the tactics I do. And there's one more side tactic that happens during inflation that a lot of people I'm finding aren't aware of. It's called shrinkflation. When you go into the grocery store and you buy a bag of chips, I know most of you are keto, but just hang in there. It happens with meat too. And rather than just fuck you right away with the inflation and say, look, we're going to raise prices 30%. No. In the interest of competing with the 10 other companies that are making the food, they generally try and keep the same price. And the way they do that is they give you less for your money. And I bring up potato chips as it's a good example of this happening. Basically, you're buying a bag of air with a few chips in it. You really got to keep an eye at unit price and what you're getting for that. That's what you look at. You don't look at the price on the bag, because they could easily fuck you into paying way more for these things by just giving you less of it and making it look like you're still paying the same amount. You see it with the ribeye market right now. You can buy a hell of a lot, half a pound ribeye, and it's like, oh, it's $10. I'm good. Well, it's a half a pound of ribeye, and you just paid $10. So what is that per pound? Ain't cheap, I'll tell you that. Motherfuckers. That adds up. That's eating away, and they're still getting that inflation tax out of you. And they know it. But you're like, oh, I could still eat. That's great. but you're paying more for less at the end of the day. And you really got to keep an eye on it. And it isn't for everything. Like, I could still tell you, you could still buy pasta dirt cheap. It's one of the reasons I came off keto is it's nice to have that option. Do I still prefer the ribeye? Yeah. If I could get a fucking ribeye, I'll get a fucking ribeye. If I can eat a keto meal, I'll eat a fucking keto meal. And I'm still going to indulge in the occasional baked good because I'm a fucking addicted piece of shit. And I think I am getting fatter. It's hard to tell. But that being said, you got to keep an eye. That's the other way to beat inflation is, it's kind of like extra credit. Keep an eye on those unit prices. Don't just buy less because it's cheap. It seems cheap when it's really not. Because that's one of the ways they try and sneak it in on you. And if they do it over enough products, you're going to feel it at the end of the week or the end of the month. So you need to really take that into account if you're fucking broke as fuck, that is. If you're one of those rich motherfuckers or even upper middle or middle class, you probably can afford it, and not really notice it in terms of you're not going to go without necessarily. You just slightly be wondering, oh, that didn't last very long. Why'd you fuckers stop eating my shit? That's kind of what it's going for if you're of the middle or upper middle class, which I am not. So there's that. But I've been in the middle class. I remember what it's like. It's great. I used to have a way that I could be middle class at any time before Biden. Thanks, Democrats. So there's that. But that being said, I'm not an expert. I'm just an asshole. If you like my shit and you want more shit, please like and subscribe. And also, now's the news. For those of you who are patient, sat through this whole fucking long ass talk. I don't even know how long it is. Probably over an hour and a half. I am planning, and I've done this based on some feedback I've gotten and some things I've done this before. This is not a new thing necessarily. It's more of a revival of something old that I've done. Apparently I have a voice for radio. And people have told me I should just go. They could listen all day. I'm good at talking and being entertaining and stuff like that. And obviously I have a lot to say. So I could talk for pretty long periods of time, which lends itself well to radio more so than video, because with video, you kind of feel like you have to watch it, and you can't really multitask, like drive or do other things if you're watching a video, especially if there's audio visual aspects to present, mainly visual aspects, which I've done in this video, and that would obligate you to be watching instead of just listening. Some people just listen, and I think I talk slow enough where you could just fucking listen at double speed too, so you could cut that time efficiency in there, because I know time is valuable. But that being said, I've decided that it's time to revive, and I'm going to call it Scott the Truck Driver Radio. Scott the Truck Driver Radio will not be on YouTube. Scott the Truck Driver Radio will not be on Odysee. It will start out on ScottTheTruckDriver.com. It is basically user supported. There'll be no ads or none of that shit on ScottTheTruckDriver.com. There's some little Google ad shit here and there on my website, but for the most part, if you just go to the store and buy a podcast episode, I'm not gonna have ads in the fucking podcast while you're listening. If you buy it from me, that is. That being said, it will start there exclusively to start out with. As in, if you want it right away and you want to directly support it in the best way possible, this is where to go. And that's ScottTheTruckDriver.com. And sign up for my free email list, and you will get an email whenever a new episode is available. I am planning on this being a scheduled event. To where I do it every Monday. I'm looking at Mondays to be the publishing date for this weekly podcast. I will be pricing it at $5 per episode download, which works out to about $20 a month. And that also will supplement my video production capabilities. I will not be taking away what I already do on YouTube, which is generally 1, possibly 2 videos a week with an occasional, very occasional live stream. Those will still happen in their current form. However, I want to provide a little bit of additional content, and in order to dedicate the time necessary to do that, I need you guys, your support for the content on a as I do it basis. It should be every week, but there may be a week or 2 here or there where I take the week off, and you'll know. I'll send out an email letting you guys know through ScottTheTruckDriver.com, free email list, to let you know if I'm going to skip a week or something like that. And after probably a month, maybe 2, I will then take those episodes. For those of you who don't want to pay $5 to listen to my shit, there will be a cheaper alternative available. However, you won't get it right away. And it can take a while for it to distribute this way, but I will then use my Scott the Truck Driver, which if you've already followed my music, you'll know that I have a Spotify outlet. I have an Apple, I think, music outlet. I think it's on Amazon. I couldn't tell you. It's basically I distribute my music through multiple platforms, streaming and whatnot. And I do get compensated from streams, but I get a hell of a lot less from that. We're talking per stream, less than a penny per stream, essentially. So, like, if I get 100 people listen to my shit through Spotify, for example, it's not a lot of money. I'm still going to pick the same price strategy on there, but keep in mind, if you purchase these through those main platforms, a lot less of that ever gets to me. It goes to those platforms. So I will release on those platforms just for the ease of access for people, because not a lot of people feel comfortable coming to my fucking website and downloading and purchasing these things directly from me. So I'm still going to leave that option available. And maybe a year later or so, maybe I will do an occasional throw an old episode onto YouTube for the people who absolutely don't want to support me in any fucking way to still be able to consume content. But that'll be on maybe I'll do it with this one, maybe I'll do it with that one type basis, just to kind of give people a sample of what I'm doing on there, and maybe perhaps grow an audience for Scott the Truck Driver Radio. The format will be at least 2 hours, but it'll go to when I'm done, which, as many of you know, could last longer than 2 hours, as evidenced in this current podcast. It'll be a lot similar to this, but it's radio. It's going to be focused, knowing that you can't see my face or screens or whatever. But with that trade-off will come less censorship, because at the end of the day, it's my website and I am directly selling you the podcast. So there's no editor, there's no platform that's worried about what I'm saying and doing. So I'm only bound by legal laws at that point, and copyright and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll have free speech. Think of what I could do with that. So, and the bounds of fair use open wide in that context, because I don't have the abusive YouTube copyright system to worry about. Guess what? They're not going to come after you illegally like they do on YouTube for fair use when you pull a clip for some commentary, which is fair use. Basically, it opens up the possibilities of things I can trigger on and react to. It will be commentary. some of it will be lifestyle type stuff like I've always done. And some of it will be political. Some of it will be just reacting to dumb shit. Who knows? The sky's the limit. It's Scott the Truck Driver Radio, which is basically me running my mouth about shit. Which I assume if you've been this long in this podcast, you probably like that. And to not have to stare at this face is probably a bonus. So there's that. But yes, starting next week, I will publish my first episode. I'm shooting for Monday, which means I got to probably record it this weekend. And another thing I'm thinking of doing is featuring some of my musical talent at the very end of those. So, like I'll close with a free song that you could probably replay at your leisure or whatever. But it'll be a growing process. It could fail. Like if I do this and I get maybe 2 downloads every week, then I probably aren't going to keep doing it, But if it's successful, if you guys embrace it, and not only will it fund the podcast itself and encourage me to do more, perhaps even more often, obviously, if there's a high demand for it, I could do 2 episodes a week because then I could spend the time because I'm making an income. Maybe turn it into a job. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Y'all could give me a job without requiring my fucking papers. It's great. And maybe could expand at some point. The sky's the limit, but it's going to start off once a week, $5 an episode. And if you're on board for that, you want the additional content to what I already do here on YouTube, and you want me to spend the time to do it, that's how we're going to do it. And it also gives me the free speech I'm looking for without all of the, I can't stream, it buffers all the time, it's fucking piece of shit, fuck Odysee, all of that. That's not an issue when you're listening to an audio podcast. In fact, it requires very little bandwidth. You download the whole thing and you're good to go. Generally, the way my store is set up is you get a 24-hour link. So I recommend downloading it to your device through the web or whatever. I mean, you might be able to stream it right on the link that you get when you purchase it. But I highly recommend downloading it because I do know that iPhone users in particular sometimes have issues where they can't listen to it directly and they don't realize to download it via a browser or whatever. I did run into that a lot the last time I did this. And the last time I did this was semi-successful. Like I was compensated for the time it took me to make the podcast for sure. But I'd like to see this grow into a full-time business, maybe. It's a shot. It's a shot in the dark. Probably not going to work. But like I'm saying, in those cases where the iPhone, I do have to manually do it, but I do go in and make sure that if you purchased the podcast that you get a copy of it, even if I have to send you the file directly, which is very labor intensive and hopefully not a lot of iPhone problems in that department. I don't know. It's been a while, so maybe my online store has become more friendly in that department in terms of distributing digital content for sale. But yeah, that's what's coming. Just wanted to announce it today. I'm fired up about it. I want to work on it. So Scott the Truck Driver Radio is in pre-production right now. Hope to see you guys there. Hope you want it. Hope you head to ScottTheTruckDriver.com, sign up for my email list so that when I drop the first episode, you can get in there and get it right away. And like I said, it's just $5 a pop. All right. So, and the more of you that do that, the more time I can put into content production. So, and if it's a hit and you guys like it, I'm willing to put more days into it and create a schedule and really just make it my job. But if nobody wants it, and I'm like, well, I fucking did that. Maybe I'll do another one here and there, might take a week off here and there. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I can't tell you for sure how it's going to go till it happens. That's it for this fucking podcast. It's probably a day later than I was trying because I have to go to work tonight. I got called in to the bar to work. So you're watching this on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, which is when I wanted to release it. So, sorry. I got to live. So, yes, I am still substitute DJ at the bar. As far as anything else I'm doing, it's mainly been focusing on either content. I've picked up a bunch of shifts at the bar lately, so I've been doing that. I still haven't jumped into the gig economy because I'm kind of waiting. I mean, I don't need to make a lot of money right now, so I'm kind of just in. To be honest, you guys have been helping me with that with the content. So I've been doing this more, and I want to do this more. So which is rare. I don't know. Maybe I just woke up this morning and I was in some kind of manic phase of my mental breakdown. But I'm making a go at it at least to give you guys more content and to at the same time have my freedom of speech and have another platform independent of Google, to be able to get content to you. So there's that. I'll be promoting it here, obviously. So you're going to hear commercials mixed in all my shit. Please go buy my fucking podcast. This week I talked about that. In the descriptions for these podcasts in the store, I will try and give you an outline of what I plan on talking about during them, or what I did talk about during these podcasts. And as they grow, I'll be pulling from comments on my videos on things to talk about as well, or responses. Or if you go to the contact me area of my page, which some of you do regularly, by the way, and you send me stuff to talk about that you want to hear me talk about, or links or stuff for that, and I find it interesting and engaging, or I'm triggered. A lot of you are really good at that. Then you could end up in the podcast as I read your comment or direct message, which you can send me through ScottTheTruckDriver.com. I get all of those, by the way, almost immediately. So there's that. I don't always respond. If I responded to everybody, that would be my job, my full-time job, and it doesn't pay shit. So there's that. Have a nice motherfucking day. And remember, do your fucking homework. Don't watch this video and we're out and buy Bitcoin and then come to me 6 months later. I lost my ass, you piece of shit. Fuck you. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Fucking piece of shit.